Alright everyone, so it's one of my favorite times of day, mail time. Let's go ahead and see what we got. Oh my gosh. You're not gonna believe this. Take a look. It's another episode of SAR Makes. Was that good? So welcome to another episode of SAR Makes, everyone. I'm Diego from the Indian Arts Research Center, and today we got another really fun project for you all. So before we get started, we need to go over some supplies we're going to need for today. So let's go ahead and gather some supplies. Let's go ahead and go over the supplies we got. So first things first, paper that I absolutely did not steal from the printer at SAR. Along with paper, we'll need pens. These are drawing pins, but if you have a ballpoint pen or a Sharpie, that works great too. I also got some colored pencils because this is my favorite coloring medium. If you have crayons or markers or even paint, that'll work well too. Just something you can use to add color to your final piece. If you have a big piece of paper available, you can use that for your final project. But if you only have smaller pieces of paper, that's great too. So now let's go ahead and go take a visit to our good friend Ehren Kee Natay at his house to see what he's been working on so he can inspire us to do our own version.
Hello, my name is Ehren Kee Natay, and I'm an artist in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm from the Diné Nation and Kiowa Pueblo, and I enjoy making art that tells a story, art that can teach a lesson and have a history to it. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my art and the stories behind it. I hope you enjoy. So I'd like to start off by sharing with you the story of my grandfather, Ehren Natay, and his album, Natay, Navajo Singer. Now this is the first album of Native American traditional music that was recorded professionally and released for commercial audiences in the year 1951. It was vinyl record and had, I think, 8 tracks of various Navajo, Pueblo, and tribal songs of the Southwest. And it was done by none other than Ehren Natay, my grandfather. So he is the one that paved the way for all Native American artists to have a career in recording arts, doing their traditional music. And for that, he is legendary. So I decided to make artwork about his life and times. So I'll start off by sharing with you this image of my grandfather. This is done with marker on paper. And this series of sketches that I'm going to be showing you is going to be influencing a comic or graphic novel about his life. So an unfortunate part of many of our elders' history is the process of boarding school assimilation. And my grandfather talks about this in his memoir and how painful it was on the first day to have his hair cut with no explanation. And I imagined him sitting there with tears in his eyes and seeing these locks of hair falling to the ground. And in my mind, I imagined eagle feathers also falling to the ground. There are brighter images from this period where you can see Ed here at the Santa Fe Indian School taking up the vocation of painting. And here he can be seen painting the walls of the cafeteria at the Santa Fe Indian School. And he talks about how there was a big change in his positive outlook on life when he was able to pursue the arts. So this last image is of my grandfather as an adult, as he sits at the command station at KGAK radio station in Gallup, New Mexico. So this is a story of success, going from being a battered child of the assimilation process in the boarding school system to picking up arts as a vocation and a career to becoming a successful radio DJ and legendary musician and a part of American history. So from these few sketches, I hope you can begin to see a timeline of my grandfather's life where he began with trials and tribulations in the boarding school and overcame them with the success of embracing culture and sharing it with the world. And I think it's very important to look at these stories of our elders, our grandfathers and grandmothers, and generations in the past, to look at the traumas that they faced and to learn from them so that we might be able to apply these lessons to the generational traumas of today, so that we can put a stop to them, so that we can heal the wounds. Perhaps we can create a safer, healthier, and better future for the people in the generations to come. So I hope you've enjoyed your time. I hope you learned something, and I hope you're staying healthy and safe. And I hope the next time that I see you, it's in person, perhaps at the Indian Arts Research Center, and we can all have a good conversation about art and history. So until then, take care, and we'll see you later.
I don't know about you, but I'm inspired. Thank you so much, Ehren. That was amazing. I actually didn't know that much about your grandfather before. So now that we've learned a little bit about Ehren's grandfather and how he used that story to inspire his own work towards a graphic novel and his illustration process, what we're going to do is take some of what he showed us and do our own. So first things first, let's write down some elements that Ehren shared with us. So for one, he picked a hero of his. So he picked a family member that he really looks up to that had legendary story. So what we're going to do is think about someone in our family or in our lives that we consider legendary. The next thing he did was broke that individual's life down in 3 different parts. So what we're going to do is do the same thing. We're going to find a way to pick 3 significant pieces and illustrate them. The last thing we want to think about, of course, is symbolism. Ehren used a lot of symbolism specific to the culture he's from. Think about symbols we may know that relate to this person and our culture. So now that we got those things figured out, let's take a minute and put all that stuff together. What we're going to do is find a way to turn it into our own miniature graphic novel. So first things first, let's think about shape. Typically graphic novels are done in squares, kind of like a comic book. Pick either a square, triangle, circle, star, any of those shapes that we feel like would fit well with the story we're trying to tell, and use those to guide the process. Once we figure out which shapes we want to use, and we have the 3 significant aspects of their life figured out, we're going to start drawing it. Now, since this is your own art piece, it doesn't have to be as biographical as Ehren made his. This could be as symbolic, as creative as you want to make it. So for example, if you don't have someone in your head right now that you would love to make a piece based off, that's okay. You can totally still do this project using whatever stories come to mind. The whole goal of this is to create a visual that illustrates a story using only pictures and symbols. So right now, let's go ahead and start some drawing and get some preliminary sketches going. First, let's figure out how we want the entire piece to look. So here's 2 options for shapes. It can be squares, circles, whatever. When you're doing this part of the sketch, it doesn't matter too much so long as you have a good idea of what you're doing and how you're planning things out. So what I want mine to look like is 2 shapes that tell the story, and then 1 somewhere in the middle that's more of a portrait. So there's going to be 3 sections to this piece. The first one is going to be the beginning, one of them is going to be the middle, and one of them is going to be the end. Now when it comes to storytelling, there are no limitations to how you convey the message. For example, my final piece is going to be a little different than Ehren's in that I'm going to rely a lot on symbolism and less on narrative to really convey the message. So pick your shapes and pick how you want it to look. You could do 3 in a row if you want, Or you can do 3 stacked together. You can do diagonal. Whatever you think would look cool to tell your story, choose that. So what I have here now is another sketch for the final design. My 3 parts to the story, and I have the whole composition figured out. So in this first panel, there are hands braiding hair. In this last panel, it's hands shaped like a bird. And in the middle, I have the central figure of the story. So the idea here is that using the knowledge you know, you can fly like a bird. So with this character, what they're symbolizing is that metaphor on 3 panels. So there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that's what you're gonna work on too. All right, so what I got here is an almost finished version of the drawing. As you can see, I finalized more of the details for these hands and the central figure. Now that you've seen how Ehren did his graphic novel, and you've seen a little different method with mine, it's your turn to go experiment with these same tools. So go ahead and utilize shape, symbols, stories, figures to create your own final piece using your drawing skills. So now it's time to go recreate this drawing on the bigger piece of paper I had, and then add some color. And it's your turn to do the same. So thank you all so much for joining us on another episode of SAR Makes, and thank you, Ehren, for showing us your process. Stay creative and have fun. Thanks.